What's going on, Panthers fans? You're watching Panthers Today by Chat Sports, and I'm your host, Tyler Smith. And now that the offseason is here for your Carolina Panthers, there's going to be rumors flying around all summer long, and it's going to start with the coaching staff and what's going to be happening with defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero. On today's show, we're going to break down the big burning question: will Evero be the Panthers defensive coordinator in 2026? And for some of you may be thinking, are the Panthers going to move on from Ejiro Evero? Well, I'm not so sure that that's going to happen, but what I do know is that Evero has started getting head coaching interview requests. As a matter of fact, he's already completed a head coaching interview with the Las Vegas Raiders. Several NFL teams have reached out to Ejiro Evero for their head coaching vacancies. Like I just said, the Las Vegas Raiders have already conducted their interview with Evero, and the Atlanta Falcons and Pittsburgh Steelers both have interviews scheduled now with the Panthers defensive coordinator. Also, since the Panthers have been eliminated from the 2026 playoffs, he is eligible for a second interview with the Las Vegas Raiders next week. So if that ends up going down, he'll obviously be much closer to getting that job. So we'll be keeping you guys updated on that. That's why you subscribe. Now, if Ejiro Evero becomes a head coach this offseason, the Panthers would get a 2026 third-round compensatory pick in the NFL draft. So that could prove to be very valuable if Evero does get a head coaching job, but I think he'd be pretty valuable if he stuck around at the defensive coordinator spot as well. Look, there's a reason that he's getting these types of head coaching interviews. He got these interviews a couple of cycles ago. He got these interviews last cycle. People respect Ejiro Evero as a leader. They respect the grind that he puts into his job. They respect the work ethic that he has. They respect the intellect that he has as a defensive mind. So naturally, in this crop of head coaching candidates that is littered with strong defensive coordinator minds, Evero is going to be in those groupings as well, for the sole reason that this guy can make something out of nothing. Look at what Ejiro Evero did in 2024 with a very lackluster roster on the defensive side of the ball for Carolina. It didn't do him any favors, though. 32nd in both yards allowed and points allowed in all of football. And then in this year, it was a complete turnaround. I mean, you're not going to see a guy go from 32nd in both those categories all the way up to 1, but he got to the middle of the pack, 16th in yards allowed per game, 15th in points allowed per game. Like, this is a clear step in the right direction for this Panthers defense, and I think a big credit could be Ejiro Evero. We're not going to sit here and act like the Panthers defense is littered with all-pro players. No. It's because Ejiro Evero is out there helping these guys play to their potential and honestly overperform a little bit. And now we know with his tutelage, this Panthers defense with a little bit more talent infused into it is going to just launch to the next level in 2026 and beyond. Now, do I believe that he ends up getting a head coaching job this cycle? If you had to ask me honestly right now, I would say no, just because of there being a lot of talent and more established talent as well in this head coaching cycle with the current vacancies out there. As for the Raiders, who have a ton of head coaches on their list, Evero doesn't necessarily jump out as the favorite out of any of these names. You got Kevin Stefanski, somebody who's been an established head coach already. Matt Nagy, somebody who's in a winning environment, a winning culture over there in Kansas City. I'm sure the Raiders would want to take anything that the Chiefs have had going on over the last half decade. Davis Webb's kind of a wonderkin name, the kind of the unknown offensive mind here. Vance Joseph, established head coach history. Strong defense coordinator with Denver. Clint Kubiak is taking the world by storm this year up in Seattle on the offensive side of the ball. Jesse Minters, some people are calling the Sean McVay of defense, so could he be getting a big-time job here? You have Evero. Jeff Hafley is getting a lot of buzz this cycle as well, as Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Rams. And I think it's pretty in a good spot that Shula is one of the guys that ends up getting one of these head coach vacancies. And then you got Nate Scheelhaase, who's also a kind of this young, up-and-coming, unknown name who is looking like the protege of one Sean McVay down in Los Angeles as well. Speaking of Los Angeles, Mike LaFleur is also a head coaching candidate that is to be interviewed by the Las Vegas Raiders. In terms of the Falcons, it's a lot of the same names, right? Minter, Hafley. You got Mike McDaniel in there too, so even another guy who has more experience at the head coaching position than Evero does. Anthony Weaver of the Miami Dolphins, the defensive coordinator spot. That's interesting. We've heard rumblings of John Harbaugh potentially wanting to bring him up to the Giants the Giants coaching staff as their defensive coordinator. And then Aiden Dirty, who's kind of like somebody who I would view in a lower tier than Ejiro Evero here, but you can't argue with the numbers that Seahawks defense has put up. They have been stellar under him. The Steelers head coaching interviews. Now, I will say this about the Steelers head coaching interviews. None of these have been completed yet at the time of recording. Interviews are set to begin on Friday, and I believe that Evero is one of those names that is going to be at least taking a virtual interview with Pittsburgh right before the weekend. Jesse Minter on this list, though, as well as Hafley, Shula. You could kind of see the theme of what the Steelers want to do here in the early portion of their head coaching search. And I'm just not so sure that Evero jumps out among the rest of these names as the go-to blue chip hire of this cycle. This isn't a guy, though, who is going to get fired. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this show, I know there's Panthers fans out there that want to move on from Ejiro Evero, and he's not a perfect defensive coordinator by any means, but he's a leader, and he's somebody that I think has become very valuable on this Panthers head coaching staff. He's not being fired under any circumstance, it seems, at this point. As a matter of fact, he just got extended in 2024 after the Panthers had the worst defense in football, statistically and probably in the eye test as well. But what does that tell you? This front office, the leadership of the Carolina Panthers has faith in Ejiro Evero. Listen to what Dan Morgan had to say about Ejiro. He said, if you look at EJ, if you're around him every day and you see how he works, how smart he is, I believe in his defense. I believe in his philosophy. He's really good at developing players. And you can see that from one year to another with this young Panthers defense. Again, it's my job as well to put him with the right personnel. And again, it's a patience thing to where we're going to attack those needs and where we're going to get better across the board. As you see us keep adding talent on our roster, players on our roster developing, I think you'll see that defense keep ascending. Look, guys, he's not getting fired after a major improvement from 2024 to 2025. Sure, it was a big drop-off from 2023 to 2024, but this team is completely overhauled. They're trending in the right direction. They're going with a youth movement. I think that Evero is very, very valuable and going to continue to rise as a potential head coaching name down the line as well. He does need to be more aggressive in some certain spots, though. I mean, every defensive coordinator does. They have these instances where you just put them under a microscope and one drive or one series can really define them as a coach, but I don't think that should be the case with Evero. But I will say, on that last drive against the Los Angeles Rams, like you can't play off coverage against Matthew Stafford. Him being so methodical and knowing that he could take what the defense is giving him every single play and make it all the way down the football field, and then when the time comes, be able to deliver a strike for a touchdown. That's exactly what Matt Stafford did on the last drive against the Panthers in the wild card round. So Evero's got to be a little bit more aggressive there. I think with a year and of experience as a playoff defensive coordinator, that's only going to bode well for Carolina in 2026 and beyond. Like I said, man, I think Ejiro Evero will be a head coach one day. Is it going to be this offseason? My best guess would be no, but at the same time, we can't rule it out. The Steelers have made him a priority interview in the beginning of their process. The Raiders have already interviewed him, and that's been completed at this point. So clearly there's interest around the league. We'll see if somebody ends up biting, and the Panthers would be in the market for a defensive coordinator again. Now, coming up next, as the Panthers try to improve this roster over the offseason, it's got to start with cutting some players, saying goodbye to some Carolina Panthers on this roster. We'll talk about those in just a moment. But first, I want to give a major shout out to the recent subscribers here at Panthers Today. Guys, I cannot thank you enough for the support that we've seen in the early days of this channel. So happy to be bringing you guys Carolina Panthers content here at Chat Sports. So a big shout out to Evans Ross, Delvin McQueen, Nicholas Ricci, Meatloaf YT, Kwame McClary, Bill Courtney, Mike Braxton, CT Ram, Jeremy Clark, and Antoine Henderson. You guys are absolute legends. And guess what? If you're new here, you could get a new shout out on the show very soon as well. Once we hit our goal of 1,000 subs, we could do even more Carolina Panthers videos here on the channel. We're just 102 subs away. It's absolutely insane, the growth that we've seen in this channel in the early going. Want to keep that train moving. So if you're new here, go down below and hit that subscribe button for free Panthers content all the time. All right, now let's get into it, man. The 2026 Panthers cut candidates. The Carolina Panthers want to be spenders in free agency. We've seen that. We've seen Dan Morgan be a guy that makes splash moves in the offseason. I think it's going to continue here in 2026 as they got a taste of the postseason. Now, as of right now, the Carolina Panthers have $28.5 million in cap space. They can create a heck of a lot more, though, by making some cuts on this roster. You could look at it, the Panthers potentially having $50, if not $60 million open to be able to spend this free agency cycle. But that starts with making a couple of cuts, and we'll start with Patrick Jones here of Carolina. And look, edge rusher-wise, he doesn't really play enough to be not saving $4.75 million on your books for 2026. Like a freed up $5 million is probably a little bit more worthwhile than valuable to Carolina this offseason than would be retaining Patrick Jones here when he's kind of buried on that depth chart. And I mean, look, a guy who's buried in the depth chart at edge, a position of need for this Carolina Panthers team. Yeah, we'll see you later there, PJ. Andy Dalton, an interesting name here for Carolina to be moving on from, because we have heard Dan Morgan is willing to bring in some competition for Bryce Young, i.e. a younger backup behind him, and move on from an older name in Andy Dalton. Maybe he'll head back up to Cincinnati to play out his days as Joe Burrow's backup if he ends up getting cut. The issue is it only saves $151,000, so we'll see if they can't find a trade partner for him, because if they do end up finding a trade partner for Andy Dalton, they could save $2 million, and that would be a huge help for this roster trying to build it out this offseason. They could end up cutting him, but it wouldn't save them much money here. Ejiro Robinson. Okay. This name might trigger some Panthers fans because he's a pretty good player, man. His PFF grades were great. He had 3 sacks this past season. Like, he can get to the quarterback. He can be that big body in the interior of the defensive line. But if you can save $9.5 million by cutting Ejiro Robinson, I just feel like the juice ain't worth the squeeze of keeping him on the roster for next season. You got Bobby Brown ascending. Obviously, Derek Brown is the blue chip defensive tackle on this roster. I think you could go out to in the NFL draft and find a replacement for Ejiro Robinson that plays to a similar level that he does when you save close to $10 million by cutting him. That might have to be the move. Jonathan Brooks. All right, I think it's just you're not going to save much money by moving on from Jonathan Brooks here, $825K, but it's enough for me to say, yeah, we should probably just cut our losses here. It doesn't seem like things are going to work out between him and Carolina, even though you're going to lose Rico Dowdle this offseason in all likelihood. It doesn't make sense for me to bring back Jonathan Brooks. Injury prone. Doesn't seem like it's an injury that he's just going to bounce back from immediately. So I would take my chances on another late round running back in the 2026 NFL draft and move on and save a little bit of dough on Jonathan Brooks. This one, Panthers fans might not like too much either. Tommy Tremble. You save $6 million. I know. I think he would be a really solid tight end too. And Ja'Tavion Sanders is hurt at this point. And his status for the beginning of the 2026 season is a little bit uncertain at this point. But saving $6 million, like, I would consider it. I know that that tight end is a position of need and a position of want for me personally, for the Panthers to target in free agency, to spend a little bit on, to give Bryce another weapon. So taking one of those guys away doesn't make all the sense in the world, but you save $6 million if you were to move on from Tommy Tremble. So that just puts him on our list for Panthers cut candidates. I don't say that you have to cut all these guys, but they're absolutely a possibility to be moved on from this offseason. If you did cut them all, though, the Panthers would be at around $50 million of cap space to spend. That's music to my ears. Dan Morgan, it's up to you from there on out to go out there and improve this roster. With that being said, when they do, name a free agent that the Panthers should sign this offseason. Get down in the comment section for me right now. Throw out a name. It could be as wild as your dreams can conjure up, because the Panthers are going to have a lot of cap space to improve this roster this offseason. Name a free agent you want them to sign down below, as that will do it for today's show. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, youtube.com/Panthers Today, for more Panthers content all off-season long. We'll see you guys next time, and as always, keep pounding.